desperate for this Jesus who can use someone who has done so many stupid things. It's incredible. And if that's offensive to the church, then I'm like, let's offend them all day long. Pull it, bro. Go for it.
Grab and pull.
What? You did it!
Oh my goodness!
Dude, you just lost your first tooth during a podcast. Can you reach inside there and just grab what's inside?
No way.
Oh, I see.
Laser, any jokes to start us out with, dude?
What do mermaids wash their fins with?
Not another
You just
mermaid.
said this one.
Tide.
You just... oh, you can't... Bro, you already said that joke before.
Oh.
You have no
okay.
new
He
one?
did? I didn't hear that one.
You didn't hear what... You were sitting right there. You did this at the beginning of the...
Oh.
Well, that was funny twice.
It was funny twice. Well, obviously, you guys both already know Trent, but it's actually Trenton.
Yeah, I go by Trent, but you can call me the
Well, in my phone, it says Trenton because it automatically put your name in.
Did it really? You know, this technology, I'm not super savvy.
Just
with
calling
it.
you by
I
your
think-
full
I think
real
somebody
name.
said a picture shows up now, too. I don't know.
Yeah, I have your picture and you're like your full birth name.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And I just
Date of
called you
birth,
by your full birth name.
Sagittarius, all that stuff. That's
Yeah, your
great.
star sign. Actually, I have a
great.
friend. I have a friend who used to say, I have good news and bad news. You said your sign is Sagittarius.
Yeah.
So the good news is your star sign says that you're about to come into a whole crazy large sum of money. Your health is about to be all fixed and everything's going to be good from here on out. The bad news is that astrology isn't real.
It's not real. It's not happening. Good luck with that.
Anyways, I stole that from a friend. I didn't make that, but he used to say that all the time.
It's actually awesome.
Cool. Well, yeah. So Trent, not Trenton. I mean
Yeah,
Trenton,
either way,
but
yeah.
called Trent.
Yeah.
I love people who do weird things and have weird things. I'm a magician. I think it's a cool random thing. You have an old time photo business where people take pictures of themselves looking old, which is the first thing because I think it's awesome that you're not like, I work a normal 9 to 5. Like I own an old time photo business. I buy old cars, I buy old guns, I buy
Right.
old things, and I stock the place with it.
Yeah, so we do old time photos. You know, when we first started here in Branson, our game plan was not to have a studio. It was actually to have a mobile studio where we'd go to different towns and do fundraisers for churches and for schools, and it turned out to be a disaster. Yeah, we couldn't figure out why when we first started doing it. We're like, hey man, this is the best idea ever because you know schools and churches are always trying to figure ways to raise money.
Yeah.
And so we put this big marketing.
Why not
plan
have them
together.
pose with a machine gun?
Yeah. And so we had made this big marketing deal about it, and finally one of the churches called us, and I was so excited. It was the first call, and I'm like, "Yeah, you ready for this?" We're like, "Actually, we're calling to tell you to stop contacting us." And we're like,
Oh my
we're
gosh,
like,
dude.
wait, why? I need to know why. And she says, "Well, think about it. You're wanting to bring liquor bottles and guns into our church." And it's like, it didn't occur to us that was a bad idea. And so, yeah, so that failed quickly.
That's so, and what I love is that, and this is why I say like you're one of those people who does weird things. Like you love Jesus, love Jesus
yeah.
more than most people that I know, and so it's a thing that you've learned to do as a ministry tool actually, which is
Right.
what I want to talk about a bit. Is how you've kind of brought your love for Jesus into your business space. But I actually never heard that story, so it's hilarious that you went from like the church is like this is no place for this,
Yeah.
to now you just show people God's love through.
Yeah.
Taking pictures with machine guns. I don't know
Well-
why I keep going to machine
Well, you know,
guns.
and the funny thing is, I think, you know, that's been almost 20 years ago. And I think if I'd been more mature and thought about it a little deeper, like I have over this last 20 years, I would have said, no, this is exactly why you need it in your church, because
Yeah.
it draws people into your church so you have a chance to talk to them.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, back then I didn't have a good rebuttal to that, but the reality was it was to have an opportunity where they could have talked to somebody.
Yeah,
So,
that's amazing. And so with old time photos, is just the thing that one day you woke up. Like for me, becoming a magician, it was almost seemingly overnight. Like I had a friend who I met. It was a mutual friend. His name is Scott Syme. I was having lunch with him one day, and I realized he did magic tricks. And all of a sudden, I went home and I told my wife, as a grown man, I was like, "Hey, I think I'm supposed to be a magician." And then I became a magician. The rest is history. So was it like this, where you like old time photos is a cool thing? Let's do it forever.
Well, I would say actually for me too as well, yes. I did a totally different type of job. The economy changed in 08 and 09, and I went back to my roots of loving photography and graphic design. And I saw an ad wanted for a job doing old time photos, and I tried it, and I was like, wait a minute, I like this. This is something I could do.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's how it started.
And so what's crazy is that now you don't just have like an old time photo spot. You have more. You have 4, right?
Yeah,
Or 5.
we have 4 here in Branson and one in
And one in-
Texas,
Oh,
and one being built right now in Florida.
Okay, yeah, that's the one I thought. Oh, I don't even
Yeah.
think I realized the Texas one. So you're
Yeah.
about to have 6.
Yeah.
6 old time photo spots,
Yeah.
but 4 here in Branson. And I've been to all of them.
Yeah.
And they're all awesome.
You have, that's right.
I
forgot
went
about
around.
that.
And this is the thing, this is what I like loved about this dude from the very beginning was, so your wife was part of a prayer group that my sister was going
That's right.
to.
It was Tara. Yeah.
And she was like, yo, there's someone there. They have this like billboard you can rent. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Which I think I owe you money to renew for this. We'll settle that later off camera. But yeah. And so we had connected and you're like, yeah, I own some old time photo places. We love supporting local businesses if you want to go in and put up your brochures.
That's right.
And so I went around and literally every one that I stepped into, everyone there was like, oh, you know Trent, like Trent's the man. Everyone had nothing but great things to say about you. Like literally the people that were running each of the stores, the employees at each of the stores, everyone's like, isn't Trent great? It was like, everyone just had amazing things. And I was like, who is this guy? Because I didn't know you. We'd only talked on the phone
Yeah, that's right.
about you having the billboard and me being late on payments. And that was the only thing that we that was the only thing really, that was our only real interaction. And as I was going to these places, I'm like, dude, who is this guy that's made such an impact in these places? And I think that's what really intrigued me about you, is because I think that as believers, it's such a big deal that we're able to function and run our businesses in a way that people notice and people respect us and love us. And so I would love for you to talk a bit about that, of like what that looks like to create the culture that you've created in an old time photo place, right? Where most people thinking of ministry are like, I'm going to start a church, I'm going to start a small group, I'm going to start a worship team. You are like, I'm going to create kingdom culture at an old time photo business establishment. How does that even?
Well, that sounds magnificent, but that's not exactly how we thought it was going to start out. We were just trying to figure out how to pay our light bill. But the reality was, as we grew, we realized our perception was completely wrong. Like we were at the landing, and so we had this really high-class location where we thought we had to have the perfect employees that looked a certain way, and we learned real quick that we had all of our thoughts completely wrong. And what we realized was we had an opportunity to find people that needed to belong to something. And there was a culture that doesn't really exist probably in many places, is a place where you can work where you belong.
Yeah, wow.
And so that's where our focus went. And so we have really honed in on creating these teams that it's not about your job, how well you do your old time photos. We do a lot of leadership trainings. We do a lot of one-on-ones. We do a lot of just motivational, just really boosting that confidence and believing in yourself. We've been very successful in maintaining a lot of employees, but we've also been very successful at helping people change their outlook in their lives and moving on to bigger and better things. Yeah. So yeah, it's been pretty cool.
No, that's awesome. And honestly, I think the thing that just stood out was that you didn't set out for this to be that. You were just like, we just need to pay our bills. And I think what's amazing and what I love about you and what I've been learning in this last chapter of life is, like, in all of us, God's just placed different gifts and different interests, right?
Yeah.
And I think to just start a church or to start a small group or a Bible study and then invite God into that is completely different than being like, this is what I do on my day-to-day basis. This is me in the marketplace. This is me at my job. This is me at my home. This is me at my kid's soccer game, whatever it is. And this is me bringing Jesus into that space. I think that that's something that so few Christians, I think we've like lost the ability to do that, because I think we're supposed to create kingdom culture everywhere that we go. And I think that a lot of times that can feel almost unnatural, because like, well, what if I'm too preachy? What if they don't like me? And we've almost embraced this form of evangelism that is like, we say that we don't want to offend people and we just want to love them, want to see something different. But what that really means is, I'm just going to be nice. I'm not going to bring Jesus into my workplace. And I'm just going to hope that people notice a difference so I don't have to like talk about Jesus, right? Or I don't have to.
Right.
But when you're actually living in a way that is countercultural, when you're actually showing up for people, when you're actually like meeting needs outside of just what's there in the workplace, when you're seeing them outside of just those 4 walls, I think there's something really powerful that happens, because I think that that's when people stop feeling like, to you, there's some project, right?
Right.
what they start really feeling is they're like, man, this is a human being who sees me and values me and cares about me. And I think that's the first thing that kind of creates the soil for you to be able to even speak into their lives, right? To even have an opinion about that. And I see you doing that. Obviously, now we go to the same church, and I feel like our paths have crossed more and more.
Sure.
And I've heard, like, even from the pastor, the role you've played in his life, I feel like you've become so intentional of actually walking with people. Is that something that you feel like is it natural for you? Is that a thing that you just kind of do on your own? Is that a thing that just you feel like God's challenged you to do that? Is it take an effort to do that?
Well, first of all, it sounds way more magnificent than it seems in my mind. But thanks, thanks for that. No, it's just the path that I'm on. It's a journey that I've been on. I think I have spent most of my life not being that person.
Yeah.
And so in my journey is learning to be more intentional.
Yeah.
To be more present.
Yeah.
I think in life we tend to forget how important it is, whether it's with your family or your kids or your work, just being present.
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm at with it.
So what creates that shift then? What is it? Like you said, it doesn't come naturally. So how do you go from this is not a natural thing for me to now all of a sudden you're like this person that every one of your employees, every person at this church, like everyone's like, dude, like Trent is a guy who sees people. Like how do you go from that not being natural to now you're like, and maybe you don't even notice it, which is hilarious.
Well, and I don't think I do notice it, but I've also been very intentional to my mindset of being, I think I read a thing one time that said that you have to be careful of what you say because your mind doesn't know that you're joking. So if you say something about yourself, like I'm not very good at this, well, your body's going to believe it because if your body doesn't know whether you're joking or not, because it's only understanding the words that you cast out.
Yeah.
Well,
almost it's taking it as fact.
Yeah, as fact. And so I believe the same thing happens in our lives with people around us. I think what we think is what we become. And what we say is what we're held accountable to.
Yeah.
So I've really just tried to focus on how can things go in my life if I quit worrying about me.
Yeah. Dang. Well, it's crazy. It sounds, the way you're saying that sounds so simple, but I think that's the thing is that it is. Like, I think we overcomplicate.
It's so much more simpler than we think.
Well, and we read this devotion called My Utmost for His Highest. I don't know if you ever heard of this, by Oswald Chambers. Old school devotional, and they've made some new versions of it through the years. But he talks a lot about this idea of living your life in such a way where you are engaged with God consistently, right? Like you're getting up, you're praying, you're in your word, you're engulfing yourself in community of people, reminding you of who Jesus is. And he talks about how like the ministry that we do actually should be ministry that we're not even aware of, right? Like that should be happening. There should be employees who are just talking great about you, and you don't know because you didn't try. You don't step in work and say, "How can I make sure everyone has good things to say about me? How can I make sure that I change everyone's life here?" Right? Yeah. It's almost like when you are living connected to Jesus, that just kind of starts being the overflow, right? As people start feeling seen and loved and noticed and cared for. And what I love about this Devo is it really does talk about how someday we should be standing in heaven and there should be people there who are giving these accounts of how we changed their lives and we didn't know because we weren't trying, right? Yeah. And again, it's not bad to start a ministry or a church or a Bible study or a small group, but a lot of times when you're stepping into those arenas, you're like, okay, what do I say that's going to make people different? What do I say that's going to challenge people? What do I say that's going to make them, their drug addiction go away or their depression go away? Rather than thinking, in my life, how do I love Jesus? How do I know Jesus? How do I let him transform my attitude? How do I let him transform my desires? And like you just said, what sounds overly simple almost is the idea of I'm just going to do my best to see God, to create a lifestyle where I value people, where I tell myself that people are important because what I think and believe, my entire existence receives it as fact. And so if I remind myself that people matter and I live in that way, all of a sudden you start to create impact, not even realizing that you're creating impact. And that's I feel like as I'm talking to you now, you have no idea that people love you so much.
I hadn't even really thought about any of that until just now. And I'm processing probably 90 miles an hour just sitting there thinking about what you're saying. And I will say that I agree because the last thing that we should ever use for motivation is what do we get in return?
Yeah.
You know, I think that I remember reading one time too about if we lived our lives in expectation of, you know, if we give gifts expecting the response to be what we want it to be, we're going to be always disappointed.
Yeah.
You know, and so, because everybody responds differently.
Yeah.
And that I think that if you wanted it to be easy, it goes to what you're saying is that you got to do it without expectation of wanting anything in return. The last thing I think about is what does somebody think about me, or what am I going to get out of this? Because it's not about that. It's never. I think that's a big release to that.
Well, it's crazy because even as you're saying this, I'm thinking it's almost like sometimes it seems the less you try, the more of an impact you're able to make.
Possibly,
Because it's almost like if you go into a place, into a conversation, into an establishment, into a room full of people, with a thing in your brain of like, I'm gonna go in here, I'm gonna say this thing, this is gonna be the outcome, I'm gonna provoke change, and I'm gonna leave. You're putting all this pressure on yourself to create this outcome, right? To say the right thing. Now it's all on you and your performance, because you're not going in thinking, how do I see these people? How do I make them feel loved and valued? How do I hear them? How do I listen to them? You're thinking, how do I go in and become the answer to their problems? How do I go in and become the solution to this space? Which now all of a sudden you're putting yourself in the place of God in a way, right? And even though you might be thinking, how can God use me? You're still going in with like so much of a plan as to what you are going to do to provoke change. And then you go in there and people don't respond the way that you had hoped, or they don't respond the way you thought. And now you go out feeling defeated, which means now you start going and strategizing how you can make a greater impact next time, rather than just being the kind of person who like sees humans, but just being the kind of person who sees the people you're in the room with. And it's crazy to me because, you know, I've noticed that, like I tell this story a lot. We did a show, and, you know, it's always great to have awesome volunteers, especially as a magician. I want people who come in and they're just like full of life and they're responding big and they're laughing at the jokes. It makes the person, it makes the show feel more engaging, right? Yeah. The more animated this person is, the more the people in the audience respond. And so I had this lady who came up and she was just such a dud, dude. Like everything, she was just sitting there, so boring, not reacting to anything. She's just sitting there like staring at everything I was doing. And this is like the finale. This is like the end of the show. This is the part that matters. And she's just the most boring volunteer I've ever had on the stage. And I'm sitting here the whole time like, I hate this lady. I picked the wrong person. I screwed up.
I ruined the show.
Dude, I ruined it. People aren't thinking this is awesome because she's not thinking this is awesome. And I'm stoked to get it over with. I finished the show. I'm like, oh, like it almost, I felt tired, right? And then afterwards, you know, I go out in the lobby and I'm hanging out with everybody. I love just being out there and getting pictures with people and meeting people. And this lady comes up to me and she's all, you know, tears in her eyes. And she's like, hey, I just wanted to say thank you so much for involving me in the show, for having me be a part. She was like, I'm a recent widow. She's like, my husband just passed away. He was supposed to come on this trip with me and he didn't come. So I came by myself. Normally we come here every year. I came by myself. It's my first time being here on my own. And you picked me. She's like everything you were saying, it was almost like you were speaking directly to me. And she was like, I couldn't believe it. She was like, I just was like stunned as you're saying this. She's like, it almost felt weird. Like everything you were saying as part of your messaging and part of the magic trick and all stuff. She's like, it was like speaking right to me. I just wanted to say thank you. And she's like crying as she's telling me this. And I'm like, Dustin, you idiot. Like you picked the exact right person, right? But I was so focused on how her response defined my worth. I was so focused on how her response defined my value. And how it made me look to everyone else, that I was in no way paying attention to what was actually happening in her heart. And had I been paying attention, I probably would have noticed her tearing up on the stage. I probably would have noticed that boring, stagnant look was actually just her sitting there in disbelief as she's like mourning the loss of her husband, thinking about how what I'm saying is speaking to her soul. It's exactly what she needed. And selfish me is like, what does this make me look like to everybody else? She's supposed to be louder. And that moment wrecked me, man. Like I just remember God challenged me so hard in that moment. Like stop physically looking at the tangible outcome to what you're doing. You have no idea. Like had that lady not come up to me and shared that, I would have thought that was a failed show. I would have thought that, but I had the luxury of her coming up afterwards and sharing. But how many times in our lives do we think that we said something or did something and no one even noticed or paid attention? And it turns out actually they were being impacted.
How would every day be if you could wake up every day and intentionally not worry about what anybody else thinks?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just,
and
life
not,
would be awesome.
And not worry about, you know, am I doing it right?
Mm-hmm.
and not being hard on yourself if you aren't.
Yeah.
How good would life be that if the last thing you worried about was what the response was?
Yeah.
Like that to me is the answer.
Yeah.
The response doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I think there's like two different types of people. You're either a giver or a taker. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And so like in these moments where we make it about us, it's like, how's this making me feel? How's this making
Yeah.
me look? Like you're being a taker, you know what I mean? Instead of going into these situations like,
right.
how can I give? How can I see a person? How can I bless someone? Like Dustin said, when you go into a room, like it's not like who's going to encourage me? Who's going to bless me? What am I
Yeah.
going to get out of this?
Yeah.
But going into every room being like, God, show me who needs encouragement. Who can I? And that's the full life. Like that's how you find joy, right?
Yeah.
No, I've never met a taker that's joyful.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that too, because I spent most of my life being a taker.
Same.
And I think that the pivotal point in life is when you realize that you don't have to be a taker. That that there's greater joy
Yeah.
when you don't put you first.
Yeah.
Which they always say in life, the man who becomes the most successful, and I'm not talking about monetary value, I'm just talking about life. Just the greatest success in life is when you stop worrying about what you get. It's when you start helping others.
Yeah.
You'll find your greatest reward when it's not about you.
Yeah.
And that's a journey that I've been on for a long time, and I don't know that journey ever stops learning.
Yeah.
Like you learn from it, but I do know that was my pivotal point in my life.
Yeah.
When it wasn't about me.
Yeah.
So good.
There's a book, I forget who it's by. It's called Follow Me. And as you're saying this, I'm like, it almost sounds too good to be true, because
Sure.
we have things that, we need to be working on, things that we need to be developing, things that God wants to do in us. But I think sometimes we have this perception of God where God looks at us and he sees all the things that need to be fixed, and his job is to just tell us what needs to be fixed so we can fix it and then come back to him and be a better Christian tomorrow, right? But as you're sharing this, I'm like, man, that does sound really easy. How good would life be if we could just stop focusing on ourselves and just what we need and serving ourselves? But the reality is that even those areas where we do need to change, how crazy that we have a God who doesn't just say, change this, do this, but he holds our hand and he walks with us through it, right?
That's right.
And as you're saying this, I'm like, man, it is crazy, this pressure we put on ourselves to perform perfectly. And it's not that our behavior doesn't matter, because it does, right? Like at the end of the day, I need to be a good husband. I need to be a good dad. Like I can't just say, well, I'm not thinking about what I need to change. I'm just going to beat my kids and like cuss at my wife and like, right? Like at some point I do need to worry about my behavior. But the fact that my behavior becomes shifted when a loving God accepts me, loves me, embraces me, holds my hand and says, Dustin, let's just be more patient today, man. Maybe you don't need to respond to your kids that way. Maybe there's a way to see your kids' needs here rather than just thinking about how that makes you feel. Maybe there's a way to see your wife rather than thinking about what you want. Maybe there's a way to, because that sounds so much more freeing and liberating actually than just saying, Dustin, you're selfish, right?
Yeah.
Say, hey, Dustin, what if you like saw your wife? What if you put your desire aside and you just kind of like, what if you just loved her today? Like, what if you just poured out into your kids? I know you got a big task list, but like, what if that stuff didn't matter as much as you thought it did? Like, what if your kids were more important than that, And the reason I'm bringing up the book Follow Me is because it talks about when Jesus called the disciples, he just said, follow me, right? He didn't say, hey guys, go fix this, change doing this, clean up your language, clean up your potty mouths, like, fix this, stop cheating, stop lying, stop competing, don't be selfish. And then maybe you can be people who represent me well. Like he just said, follow me. And he trusted that when they started to follow him, when they started to follow Jesus, that they would be so inspired by his goodness. Like Jesus knew this, that they would be so inspired by his boldness, his courage, his love, the power of his selflessness, that they would naturally start to change by simply being in his presence. That he didn't even have to tell them a lot of the time, right? You see the way that the disciples changed from the beginning of them following Jesus to the time that Jesus died and rose again, and now they're out. They became the people literally spreading the gospel. They were completely different people. These disciples, they saw Jesus loving people in a way that was radical. They saw him loving them even though they didn't deserve it, right? They're sitting here arguing like a bunch of children, and Jesus is continuing to welcome them in and to call them leaders and to send them out as leaders. And I think they start over time becoming that. And I think just to get back even to you in the way you're running your business, what I know even from conversations we've had in the past is you see people as leaders, whether they see themselves as being
That's right.
equipped to be a
That's
leader
right.
or not. And like you said, you give them a place to belong. You give them a place to say, hey, I have a role here. I have a purpose here. I'm in charge of things here. Like I have the responsibility of not only overseeing these people, but also creating an experience for the people coming in to get the picture taken, right? And you trust them with that responsibility. And it's like naturally they want to steward that well because you've seen them as human.
Well, and I think it goes back to what you were just talking about with the fact that there'll be somebody watching this today that'll say, well, that all sounds great, and I've been a taker, and I'd love to be a giver, but the problem is I've done too many things in my life that God would never love me. Jesus could never forgive me. I can't turn my ways because I've done too many things wrong that maybe it's just not for me. And I think that's the biggest fallacy that we have in life is that we tend to sometimes put ourselves in a position where we think, well, we can't be forgiven.
Yeah.
And we can't change that. So we can't change our ways. And I think that again, that there's no one alive today that can't break that cycle.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing is that somebody hopefully today will be watching this and go, you know what? I want to give it that try. I think for me, I knew that I had so much I had done wrong. And I was thinking to myself for a long time, well, I can't fix me through Jesus because I won't make it. I won't be good enough. And I think it all boiled back down to the part where it said all you have to have is a little bit of faith.
Yeah.
Like the faith of the mustard seed, believing that, you know what, I still have so much to grow. And my journey will probably occur all my life.
Yeah.
But it's each step of the way is in that direction. And forgiveness is a beautiful thing that allows that. So
yeah. Well, and I think too, what you're also touching on is because now you don't have anything to prove anymore. You step into a space not worried about your past, how that limits you or defines you. You step into a space and all of these people that you're, quote unquote, leading, right? The people that you're over, the people that are in your neighborhood or your family or your sports team or your business, whatever. These people now are not less than you. They're people just like you.
that's right.
And I think that's a big part too, is when you step into a space carrying the weight of I'm better than these people and I better change them. It's so different. And this is what I think, like my wife, I think is the most amazing. I think she's exemplified this better than anyone that I know of like coming out of this past of so many things that really would have disqualified you from being a good Christian leader, right? To now speaking in a way that is like so vulnerable. Like there are people that are literally almost like offended at Carrie's vulnerability and her honesty about her past and the thing that she's been through because like, we can't say that here in a church. And yet the people that I have seen like in tears on their knees, desperate for this Jesus who can use someone who has done so many stupid things. It's incredible. And if that's offensive to the church, then I'm like, let's offend them all day long. Because if you can go in with the confidence, and it's not a confidence of like, you're perfect now and you figured it out. It's a confidence in who God is. It's a confidence in what God has done with you, right? It's a confidence in the way that God's redeemed you and now uses you in the midst of flaws, in the midst of inadequacies. And it's what I think is so beautiful because what you're saying is that when you can live life in that way, it empowers other people to even say, oh, wow, if this guy can do that, if he can wear his weaknesses on his sleeve because his weaknesses don't define him, then maybe I can do that too because I'm realizing this guy's not better than me. He's not elite or superior. He's not some Christian on a high horse. He's actually just like me, right? And I think for a lot of Christians, that scares them to say, I'm just like these sinners, right?
Yeah.
No one wants to say that. But I think that when we recognize who we are versus who God is, we step into spaces with this thing of we want what God can do with us to shine more than what we can do with us.
Yeah.
Hold his hand and know that he's like, listen, I love you. I'm going to walk with you through all this mess.
Yeah.
And I'm going to use you even in the mess, which I think, again, is a big part of my wife's story too. That's why, like, this is what blows my mind about God is I see for all of us in the midst of all of our crazy stuff, the stuff that we deal with, that God just says, like, you're loved and you're accepted. That's one thing. But that, like, you can impact a life in a way that will change someone forever simply because you were willing to put your confidence in God's strength and not your own. You're willing to humble yourself. Man, it's so powerful. And I think that it's cool. So obviously, I think that what you're doing, you're creating memories for people as they come in, right? And I feel like I have a responsibility when I'm creating these magic tricks, performing these magic tricks. Yeah. He's getting loose? He has a loose tooth. Oh, that's okay.
It's okay,
It'll-
buddy.
it'll bleed a
That's
little bit.
normal. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
It's
normal.
okay.
It's
That's
good.
good.
That's
That's
normal,
good, dude. You're
buddy.
losing your
About
first
it.
tooth,
Yeah.
bro.
It's about
Let's
to come
go.
out. It's so close.
Yeah.
When we come up, maybe we'll see if it comes all the way out. Okay. Do you want? Do you,
That's awesome.
yeah. But you know what's so cool is I feel like when I'm stepping onto a stage and I'm performing, I have a responsibility. I'm creating a memory for these people, right? And it's a big deal. But if I try and force that, it changes everything, right? I have to fully actually be present and actually see them, because what creates the memory is people feeling valuable. You
Yeah.
can't pretend to think someone's valuable. You have to actually think it, right? Like
Right.
it has to be authentic. And I think part of this in developing this lifestyle, like you're saying, taking time to actually believe that, it changes stuff. And I had actually, it's, you have an old time photo thing. I think photos are a huge way to create memories. I have a little box here of some photos of just different memories in my own life, which I think is just fun.
Oh, that's cool.
Polaroids, right? Like when the last
Polaroids.
time you see Polaroids, dude.
Man.
But
Do those
but-
still exist? Or did you
I
pull these out
think
of
so.
like
Some of these are old, some of them are newer. But what's fun is, like, all of these are different. All these photos, they
Yeah.
mean something to me for different reasons. There's some of the boys, some from when I was a kid. And it's cool because as you're capturing these memories with your business, right? You are literally in a place of you are creating a memory for families coming on a vacation and they have this thing to laugh at because they're holding machine guns and
Yeah.
they're standing in front of some old crazy classic car, and it's just really fun. I wanted to try something actually. So let's do this. So all of these are different, right? We're gonna flip these over,
Okay.
and I want you to grab just one of them from anywhere in the pile and put it back into here face down.
Okay.
Yep, just put it right in there. I have something that's crazy because sometimes our memories become real. And it's funny because earlier you said about how what we believe, our body takes it as fact, right? What we tell ourselves, our body
Yeah.
takes that as fact. It's almost like we can create a reality for ourselves.
Sure.
Again, could have picked any one of these. Let's do this. Can you just take that out? I want to.
Yeah. Do you want to see it?
Yeah, we can see it. So, okay, so this is fun. This is when we first moved to Vegas, actually. Me and Silas loves building Legos. And when we first moved to Vegas, this is one of the first things that we built there. Silas loves building. But the thing that's crazy too, so I had this bag here that those photos were in. Do me a favor, can you reach inside there and just grab what's inside?
No way. No way.
Oh
Seriously.
my goodness.
And you know what's funny about that whole deal, and this is why Dustin's such a great magician, is because it's mind blowing, non-predictable. I remember when we lived in a small town and magicians would come into town. Sorry to talk about this, but you set this up, and and you watch, they'll come in and perform for the school, and we're at this little small cafeteria, and it's the same corny top hat with a rabbit kind of deal.
Yeah.
It's not even a real rabbit,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh yeah, but you can kind of like, oh, I see how that happens. We first watched her show in Vegas after AGT, and I was like, whoa. And I remember it was the best show ever, but wasn't the best till the end. And you came out and you had this great story, and then you did these tricks. You're like, okay, I can't figure that out.
Wait,
Just like
I
this.
didn't know you saw him in Vegas.
Yeah, sure did.
What?
Yeah.
How did I not? I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
It's so.
That's
I
so
could have picked
cool.
anyone I wanted. That's really good, dude. So
Wow.
a little bit of mind blowing there.
Memories, bro.
Yeah.
But this again is what I think is so cool is you create this for people. And I just want to encourage you as well, man. Never underestimate like what you're building and creating for families coming in here
Yeah.
and what you're empowering your staff to do. Because what I'm getting out of this conversation is this man has no idea of the impact that he's
Yeah.
making every day on every single person you work with. But it is a big deal, bro. And I'm inspired because of it. I know that so many other people are inspired because of it. Keep doing what you don't know you're doing, and don't try and do it more because you'll probably do it less by trying to do it more.
Yeah, you're so right. Absolutely. Well, I'll give a little credit out to my wife too, Leah. She's always talked in our household about joy, the word joy, and that's Jesus, others, and then yourself.
Oh, wow,
So
that's cool.
good.
So
My wife's a sucker for those
I love that.
those little wife things.
yeah,
I'm gonna have to print that on another.
Right.
Not that we need more words in our house. There's a sign
we need
for
reminders.
everything.
Absolutely. Well, and I guess I would also say too is just anybody that's watching this today, if they're like, man, I want to give it a try, give it a try.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
give it a try, dude.
Don't get it right.
Yeah.
Just don't stop.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you will get it right. It
Yeah.
will happen, and your life will change. If there was a testimony for me, it'd be about the day that I put joy in my life.
Yeah.
Jesus, others, and then myself.
Yeah.
Is when it all changed.
Yeah.
And I you can't go wrong with it.
Yeah. No, it's so
Yeah.
awesome, man. And I think too, I like that you're saying, like, I think some of the greatest encouragement that we can give is for people to just say, you know what, try it. You're probably gonna do a bad job at first. Just keep doing it. Because what there's the other option to keep living for yourself
right.
and being unsatisfied and selfish.
That's
So like we might as well just keep living life in a way that is seeing other people, man. And you will get good at it. And there's a God who wants to walk with you through it. So
That's right.
I love it. Laser,
Yes.
closing thoughts.
Just love on Jesus.
Love on Jesus. That's a good one.
Cool.
Good.
You got our you can do our sign off?
Now I See You podcast will continue next
Now I
week.
see you.
Now I see you.
That sounds like a scary movie.
Now I see you. Dude, you just made it so okay. Yo, well, there's no you, it's just now I see.
Leave the
Oh, now
lights
I
on.
see. Join us next week.
That's
perfect.
awesome. So you got a loose tooth, huh? Let's see. Oh my goodness. A first
First
loose
one.
tooth?
Oh, that thing's looking ready, bro.
That's looking so ready.
Is it ready yet?
We don't know. What do you think?
I think so.
You're about to lose your first tooth during this podcast?
You
Are
lose
we on
all
the
of
air?
your tooth yet.
Yep. And they came back
Came back bigger and better.
bigger and better.
All right.
Are we still on the?
Well, I mean, dude, we're not about to have this happen and not
Okay.
get this moment. Oh my gosh, it's right there.
It's so right there.
Yep, I have one.
Bro, you're about to lose your first tooth on camera. Pull it, bro. Go for it.
Just grab and pull.
What? You did it!
Oh my goodness!
Dude, you just lost your first tooth during a podcast.
Yeah, good
That's
job.
crazy.
Don't lose it.
Let's see, Sai. Here, come here.
Wow.
Give him that. Here, wait, here. Show it up
That
here. I'm
looks
gonna go to
good.
the close. Oh, here, look at right at that camera.
Oh wow.
Dude, during the podcast, you just lose a tooth during a podcast. Silas! Yeah, buddy.
That's awesome.
Dude, you just lost your first tooth.
Okay.
Dude, you lost your tooth. We just got on video.
That's awesome.
My man.